Hello, and welcome to another episode of the World Eaters Tactics series. I am Sam. I'm Black Crow Gaming's World Eater expert. I live and breathe World Eaters, play lots of events with World Eaters. The previous episode of this series was me talking through an event win with World Eaters, so I thought. Um, Today we would look into sort of Pariah Nexus's win rates. So obviously focusing on World Eaters here. So World Eaters at the moment are sat at 53% in Pariah Nexus. This data is taken from StatCheck. Thank you very much, StatCheck, for supplying and looking after data for us 40k nerds. The way that they do this data, the only thing that's included in this data is GTs. So these are 2-day events, 5 games plus, and have, I think it's somewhere like 22 people at least. It's somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number. But yeah, so this data won't necessarily match up with GW's data, what they represent, or some other data that might be stored and shown on the internet. This is just GT related data, so just tournament data. And less likely to be a small local data. So there's a good amount of games. We've had Pariah Nexus for a while, and Bodhi is a sat in the 53%, which to be fair is a good, it's in GW's Goldilocks zone. So hopefully that means that we won't get very much changes. I mean, maybe we could do with like a tweak here or there on the stuff that isn't getting used or won't see play, and maybe that we might need to look at some internal balancings, but that's not what this video is about. This video is looking at what matchups we are good into and what matchups we are bad into. And I'm going to talk through maybe the reasons why or what I try to do to mitigate these bad matchups. So yeah, let's start with the good stuff, right? Like, I mean, right at the top of that, I've listed them in order, but right at the top, we have Gene Steer Colts at 76%. Now, there's a few factors that go into this. One, Gene Steer Colts at the moment are struggling, other than a couple of players. Shout out to Innes in Scotland player that went 7-0, I think, at a big Hellstorm's big event. So GSC do have some potential in there clearly, but it's clearly not a very easy army to play. I think there's about 21 World Eater versus Gene Steer Cult games that are counted in this data set. So it is a small set, which makes more variants possible. But I do think that we are probably one of Gene Steer Cult's worst matchups. I haven't gone into the data to confirm that, but just from my experience playing into Gene Steer Cults, like they want to, run at you, die, kill some stuff, die, come back and go again. Whereas with World Eaters, we go, okay, well, we're going to run at you, kill you, and then spread across the board and grab you wherever you try to come back and hide and just not let you play the mission that you want to play, and or at least completely force you off primary entirely. I imagine secret missions is quite an annoying thing in that sense, but half the games Gene Circles aren't going second, and if we've got stuff left at the end, we're just going to be ripping them off those objectives. We've got a decent amount of battle line, and their characters don't come back to life, so you just go and grab the characters. I don't feel like they have a good answer to Angron. Like I say, it's one of the more niche matchups. I haven't played Gene Steer Cult against Gene Steer Cult since the Codex. So, I don't know. I'm not the be all and end all of that matchup, but the data suggests that it is a very strong matchup for us, and I'm not surprised because they don't like our speed and they don't like how any of our units can touch any of theirs and kill it. Jackals are very good into neophytes, right? They'll just shred through them because we just have the massive attacks. So next is Space Marines. Now this is the opposite of Gene Steer Cults. We have lots of games in the Space Marines. Let me just you've got 69 games, so almost 3 times the amount of games. Now Space Marines, to clarify for this data, doesn't include any of the divergent factions. So when we're looking at Space Marines, we're talking about Salamanders, we're talking about Ultramarines, we're talking about people that haven't selected one, not using any named characters of any kind. So it's all just from Codex Space Marines. So we're not including Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, etc. Um, so uh, Space Marines aren't doing that great as well in their own like win percentage. But we generally, when you see Space Marines, um, outside of people just taking the fluffy fun list that they like, for the chapter that they like, more than acceptable, fun thing to do. People want to take the armies that they like, even if they're not necessarily as strong as they would be if you converted them all to Dark Angels and put in Deathwing Knights or whatever. But we have the main Space Marine build, I think, that's popular, is the Vanguard Space Marines, the Ultramarines like Kalgar and I've forgotten it. Is it Oriole or something? The other character gives like Centurion Devastators, Deep Strike, and Vanguard has like a bit of the uppy downy, I think, and some shenanigans. But then the Vanguard's main um, detachment ability is for shooting, anti-shooting, and we don't care. We just run it. So a lot of that, what makes Vanguard annoying to deal with, we care less about. So while Space Marines, so like generally, you know, it's a good matchup for us because of that, right? So they're wanting to teleport about. We're too fast, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you can teleport into the corner with the Centurion Devastators there, but I can still reach that corner. Or I'm going to rapid ingress a unit of so this is my trick for uppy downy things. That it's like they've got one unit that they're keeping safe and it's just teleporting. You can see it's going to teleport. Whether it's Inceptors, whether it's uh, uh, um, the Centurion Devastators, or something else, right? Whatever it is that they are going to uppy downy. What I do is I just rapid ingress some Exalted Ain't and as soon as they put that unit down, in a place where it might be slightly exposed, those and I can hide a unit of Exalted Ain't in rapid ingress. They then get a nice easy charge onto those, and that usually deals with that problem. Even if they somehow survive and get out of that combat, they can't then go back up in the air, and then like you just have a much better chance of dealing with them. Generally, that's problem over. So if you hide your army in a position where they have to expose their unit to bring it down, like so it can't just like be in amongst their army where they can screen you out. That's sort of my solution to deal with those like jumping around scary units. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of uppy downy mechanics in the game at the moment with Grey Knights and Hypercrypt and soon to be maybe some Blood Angel lists. So and a lot of armies that have it for like a couple of units, single units, like Vanguard, like Tyranids, have some mechanics for that, and demons as well. So rapid ingress is a great solution for that problem. If people are constantly jumping up and down around the place, if you save some stuff in the deployment phase into ready for that rapid ingress, then you go for it. And also, a reviving Angron does the same thing as well. So if they have multiple units and you have an Angron reviving, oh, it's juicy putting down him in rapid ingress. So that's Space Marines. Chaos Knights, once again, also over 63%. Chaos Knights aren't hugely popular at the moment. They're not doing too well. They're fine. I think they're sort of in the middle of the pack somewhere. But the problem Chaos Knights have with us is pretty much everything in our army can kill a War Dog. Normal ain't bound, give them +1 to wound and maybe some sustained hits or rerolls from like an Angron, and they're picking up a uh, or lethal hits as well. They're picking up a War Dog. They're especially good at finishing off hurt ones because of the reroll aura. Um, uh, Berserkers wounding War Dogs on 5s, give them +1 to wound. 4s, weight of attacks, they've only got a 3 up armor save. They don't get there invulnerable in combat. Angron can, if he gets the right charge, can pick up 2 of them. He can pick up a Big Knight without having to sweat. The big knights are characters as well, which means master executions. Even though it's an army of vehicles, he's not a dud. He'll shred apart a stalker by himself, or he'll take a chunk off the off a big knight. So that's the big threat that they have for us. The strategy that I like to use for Chaos Knights, especially if it's very loads of War Dog spam, is sort of stage myself, set myself up, try and not give them too much to shoot at, too much to do. Maybe use my jackals to screen out some carnivores so they can't run through walls into certain positions and things like that. Because yes, they can run through terrain and through enemy models, but if you've spread out your models into big groups and block just the whole space, that they need to get to the other side of the wall and have space to put their base to be able to go through it. So if you can screen them out that way, and then you just send your whole army in one go. You want to kill as many war dogs as possible in one turn, so then their reaction back isn't very strong. So if you kill 4 or 5 war dogs in one go, they then have a significantly less amount to strike you back. And usually they'll probably have to try and focus down like Angron or otherwise, and then whatever you have left goes into those ones, and usually you can overwhelm with numbers in the sense of, I kill 4 this turn, I kill 4 the next turn, and not got many left at that point, and they're not killing very much. And if they've got to do actions for their secondaries, you're drastically reducing that number very quickly. So that's why I think Chaos Knights are a good matchup for us, and that's how I sort of deal with them. Space Wolves. So Space Wolves is an interesting one because Wolf Jail is sort of the way that they like to play. And while for a lot of armies that's very, very intimidating, I mean, it's very similar to what we like to do sometimes, where we put a lot of pressure on the middle of the board. Wolf Jail's a bit more aggressive than that, but usually what happens is their strategy is just to staying alive, blocking you in, and being, maybe kill a good chunk of your stuff. But the point is you're stuck in your deployment zone for too long, right? So you can't get out. And the one problem World Eaters does not have is killing things in combat. So we chew through it, we get out the other side, and oh look, there's lots of scoring to do. So I feel like that's the reason why we have a good win rate into Space Wolves. To be honest, it's higher than I expected it to be, but yeah, 60%. Like for all of those, that's a really high win rate percentage, right? Like that means that because if you take into account the occasional draw and things like that, we're looking good for us. So yeah, it turns out Wolf Jail can't contain an Angron. So yeah, it's I'm trying to think of other Space Wolf mechanics that to watch out for. But I mean, the problem is yeah, the only one I can think of at the moment is just Wolf Jail. They just throw loads of Thunder Wolves and Wolfen at you and stuff and just hold you there. But yeah, like I say, we can chew through it. We like to have our army in a small area as well, because it means that everything's getting Angron rerolls and everything like that. Realistically, once you're out in the game for a few turns, that's not going to be as easy to do. But when they're throwing everything into you towards your deployment zone, you should have a nice overlapping auras with Eightbound and Angron, and it just means we're chewing through that stuff so quickly. And we don't need to spend our blessings on movement buffs because they're right there, so we can get things like sustained hits and essentially fight on death on 4+. If that's, although I feel like I don't like fight on death on 4+. Generally, it's just inconsistent and just doesn't quite make the difference. But yeah, it might in that matchup. If you're not using the other blessing, but Fiona Pain is far not more important. Votan is not one I have that much experience with. I seem to have managed to not play against a Votan list in a long time. So if anyone's watching this and plays Votan as well, or has a friend that plays Votan that wants to hit me up and play me on TTS, that would be great. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna leave that as the cutoff for the ones our good matchups, our top matchups. And I'm going to move on to talk about the bottom matchups, because let's be honest, Clearly we're doing very well in the top matchups. We don't need to worry too much about the those ones. We're doing well there. I was just giving my insight onto how the reasons why. So maybe if you're struggling into those matchups, you might have a better chance going forward. But we are all clearly struggling into these other matchups. Now, Drukhari first. This is our worst win rate, but I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that have the worst win. Our worst win rate is into Drukhari. The problem with Drukhari at the moment is units like Lilith, incredibly good anti-infantry. The majority of our stuff's infantry and fight first, and that then the other part is Archon with Court of Archon, so it's another fight first block, but also has that Vectora, which is horribly hard to deal with. When you're trying to you want to reroll a charge here because you rolled a double one, failed, or you want to try and heroic intervene to sort of get your fight first unit into them, and so it just makes everything so much more costly and dangerous. So um, multiple fight first bricks from the enemy, very mobile, got a decent bit of shooting that can destroy an Angron if they have 3 units of Scourges that will run into you, shoot into you. So there's some worries there. I mean, honestly, generally the shooting isn't a huge amount, but there's enough there just to tickle the numbers in their favor. But the way to beat Sky Splinter Drukhari at the moment is getting them out of the boats, right? Like a lot of their mechanics are based on the boats. You've got to deal with with Lilith at some point. You want to effective if you're using the master executions block with glaive and 10 berserkers. You really need to play with those carefully, get them into the right positions, and really it's a very when you have fight first versus fight first armies, and especially when both of those units will kill pretty much any unit on the other side, you've got to play very carefully. You can't let your opponent pull out tricks that stop your fight first and then kill your unit, and they'll be trying to do the same. So you want to look into getting things like a Rhino or Jackals or something into that Lilith squad to soak up the damage from their fight first activation, and then have your rest of your unit pile in, just slaughter. So another unit pile in and slaughter. Angron is very good into Lilith. She has anti-infantry. He is not infantry. Same with Invocatus might do, but she's got enough attacks, and the squad especially has enough attacks, and they can get extra. I think they can get. It might just be Lance, so it might not be +1 to wound if you charge them, but you got to watch out for that. But it could be a situation where they've properly stopped your scary units from reaching it, but like, oh, Invocatus can reach her and a unit of Jackals. So the unit of Jackals take the hit, Invocatus then epic challenges, and because he's out of the 12-inch aura, so it's only 1 CP, and there's Lilith dead, right? She's I mean, she could roll well and save, but like dev wounds potentially that can take her out. So you want to be aiming to sort of it's a very finesse game because both sides are fast. Both sides don't want to get hit like properly first. So it's going to be a lot of like walls of fight first things with heroic intervene and problems like that. So if the Drukhari player doesn't play it right, there's a lot that we can capitalize on and just sort of roll over the game. But it's sort of if the Drukhari player is playing it correctly with their positioning, it's a really, really hard matchup for us to go into. And it generally, if people are playing Drukhari at the moment, it seems that they are super skilled with the army. Like the people, we don't have many people dipping their toes into Drukhari at the moment. It's just those specialists that are playing it a lot. So it's a very difficult matchup. I'm not surprised at the 38% win rate, but if you can get the right engagements, get the right positioning, it is definitely not unwinnable. If I come across a Drukhari player, I'm going to be trying to beat them. 38% of us are doing it. Some of the, we're doing it 38% of the time. It's definitely a winnable game. You just need to really, really consider where they can move to, how they're going to do it, your CP management, because prepare for, oh no, I had set myself up to heroic intervene, but now it's going to cost me 2 CP. It's probably still worth it if you've got the right if it's the right thing happening, but you've got to make sure that you have that CP ready to go. So yeah, be careful. Next, we'll move on to Blood Angels. So we've all seen the new codex, but it's not here yet. So once the new codex drops, I feel like we have a much better matchup into Blood Angels than we do now, because they lose fight on death. Now they have a better matchup into a lot of the other stuff that's probably preying on them at the moment, but Blood Angels, our main problem for them at the moment is that fight on death. So basically, we're in a weird situation where if you have two units in combat, one activates there, they fight. If I charge 2 of their units, one of my units activates, they fight on death, then they interrupt on the other side. So if they've got 4 CP or 3 CP and a captain, they can do both of those things, and basically we lose 2 units for killing one of theirs. Assuming that we actually kill their unit. So it becomes, and it's like, oh, but okay, so we just let them charge us, and it's like, okay, they charge us, and then they activate in one place, and then they fight on death where we interrupt, and same thing happens. So because we could do army ride fight on death 4+, but if only half of your squad's activating, there's a good chance you don't actually kill the opposing side. So, and once again, we have a fight first unit, they charge into the fight first unit, activate fight on death, lose maybe their squad, but they kill our fight first squad, and then suddenly that's off the table. So it's the Death Company with Power Fists and Inferno Pistols. The other thing is that Angron's really good in this matchup, but they have enough shooting with all of those Inferno pistols with rerolls to hit, and usually there's like a repulsor or a lancer or some little bit of extra shooting that they can chunk through Angron. So yeah, it's usually Angron struggles to get more than one engagement in a way, and they won't let you have the one that you want, which is, oh look, there's a Lamates that has -1 damage, because that's insanely good against our army. We struggle into -1 damage because of the amount of weapons we have that are damage 2. So Lamatas is a big problem for us. If we can get Angron into that unit, we're probably picking up most of that unit. So yeah, he's not necessarily going to kill every single one of them, but you're going to do the smash, and you're going to kill, probably 7 or 8, depending on rerolls and sustained hits and things like that, which is huge. That just makes that unit completely stifled. And if you've got 1 CP just to take out Lamates in the first place, with one of the first attacks or some of the first attacks, so it is very if you can get the right engagements and they don't properly CP manage. So if you get engagements when they don't have 3-4 CP, then suddenly this matchup becomes a lot more friendly. But they just have so much. They have so much that these they're not quite as fast as us, which is kind of funny because their base move is faster, but with like auto advancing 6 and things, and with the so with the right CP management, we can interrupt in places and do stuff, and if we get a revive on Angron, there's a good chance that you can win the game, but it is an uphill battle. So those are the sort of things you want to look for, is trying to get Angron into Lamates. You want to sort of hit if you can set yourself, you don't want to do a trading game with them because they'll win. So what you want to do is hit their entire army in one go. Send out everything in one fell swoop. So you save yourself, try and stop them from getting any engagements while you're getting ready, and then you send out your entire army in one go and just try and connect with as many units as possible of theirs. And if you can, then you can because yes, first one they fight on death, and so both squads die. Second activation, they interrupt and kill your squad. Third, fourth, and fifth activation go your way, because you've still charged and everything. So if you can get like 5 of our units into 5 of theirs. Yeah, they're gonna. You get to choose where the first fight happens, but then they get to choose where one of theirs activates. So that's a actually a problem where they get to choose like the most important one to win. Um, so you kind of have to make sure that you activate there. So then the most important one is a mutual kill, which is not necessarily good for us, and then the second most important one is a win for them. So it's still a It's still not easy, even if you get more. If you get all of these engagements at one go. So yeah, honestly, I cannot wait for that Blood Angel Codex to properly come out. Like I'm tired of 10 power fists with the Inferno pistols or whatever they're called, and uh it's just and it's just utter bullshit. um so uh Death Guard. Now Death Guard's a weird one. So there's multiple ways that Death Guard players can play, and I feel like our lack of uh our lower win rate is more focused on um lots of fight first blocks of plague marines. Um, they've got a good amount of like shooting from that, as well as probably some war dogs supporting. So they have ways of bringing down Angron from range. Rhinos to move them up, but then they don't sit in them, because if they sit in the rhinos, we can avoid that fight first and get them. But like they have ways of dealing with our blood surge move with just grenading us and then activating and just wiping the squad, and Nurglings. So the army-wide ability of Death Guard to give us -1 weapon skill, and plus the Nurglings -1 to hit, just drastically reduce our output. I was saying earlier about how we don't have issues killing stuff in combat. Well, sometimes against Death Guard we do. So if the opponent picks -1 weapon skill, because they won't always pick -1 weapon skill. Some people think that the -1 save is more important, because then they can kill us more effectively. Getting that -1 weapon skill, you just need to be. We need that Angron aura. We need that reroll hits. We have that. Even if we're hitting on 5s into, because there's Nurglings nearby, is we can just get through. It's just like get yourself sustained hits, get yourself Angron rerolls, and suddenly you're getting loads of hits again. And they're not, even though they're Death Guard, they're not that tanky. You can chew through them. It does work. You need to know how to capitalize on when they don't get out of their transports, because sometimes they will just move up and work out the transports because they think they're safe and we're faster than that. So that's a mistake that they can make. And if you get multiple units in, I mean, go check out the second video in this series. Because I go through how that works, how you can charge multiple units and kill the units inside. So yeah, there's tricks to be had there. Nurglings stopping our scout moves, very annoying. Nurglings with -1 to hit aura, very annoying. So if you can get rid of all the Nurglings early, without over committing too much stuff, it's really good. I mean, especially since that contagion is a short range. Usually on that first turn, if they've used Nurglings to scout blockers, you can go and charge those Nurglings. You're going to be -1 to hit. So something like Invocatus is usually, could be good hitting on 3s then with him. He's got 2 damage apiece. They've not really got much of a save. So, especially if he can be within aura range, he should be able to take out some Nurglings. And that's like, oh, Invocatus stood on the middle objective and he's just killed a Nurgling unit. All good, right? Like that's fine. Yes, there's a good chance he'll die, but your opponent then needs to come forward and do stuff and interact. So, and you've gotten rid of that potential double stacking of minuses. So you want to look to try and deal with Nurglings. Also remember activation order, right? If you've got stuff in combat with the Nurglings and there's no reason that your opponent's like about to interrupt, or has like a like multiple fight first in combat, so there's no downside to activating there first. Remember to activate there first, because if you kill them there, then your next attack won't be at -1. So yeah, just do think about that. Angron is important in all of these matchups, but Yeah, that one, like, you really, really want those reroll auras. So sometimes it's not. It's like worth just holding Angron back, sticking him behind a wall, and just extending his, having his aura out to the other side where the fights are happening. If you can keep him safe and keep him alive, I feel like you can win that game. Or if you lose him early, really focus on getting that. Attempt at revive, fish for him more, use the for the blood god strat, roll those extra 8 dice multiple times. um every opportunity you can, get him back onto your side of the board, because he is a menace to them, because they also don't kill him that easily, especially when we're getting towards the later stages of the game. So I that's how I see that matchup. It's not an easy one again. It's less positional based, in the sense of like where your opponent is. It's more positional based on how you move your army around together. Obviously, you want to focus on scoring, but remember, uh, like they need to be out of the transports, so they'll probably be a bit slower as well. So, but yeah, if you see them in the transport within range of multiple stuff, go and mop them up. It's very satisfying. But yeah, be careful. Um, Necrons. So Necrons are an interesting one, because I feel like it's a very split thing. If you come across Hypercrypt out Catan, we're very good into them. Once again, I go back to that speed-based thing. We have the speed to oh look, they've picked up there and they've dropped over to this other side to do an objective. Well, I have a unit that's going to reach that, pick them up, and then we just it's like playing whack-a-mole. They like pop up over here, pop up over there, and you're just like stomping them down. But the thing is they can't do it forever, and so quite often you can end up just using up all of their resources, because while you've got a couple of units just like cleaning up around the board, the majority of your army is sweeping across the board to get to their deployment zone, and so anything that hasn't been picked up and jumped across the board is vulnerable there. So I find that usually it goes quite well into either low number of Catan, maybe one Catan, or no Catan Necron lists. Once you have Catan involved, it becomes significantly harder. So, especially when we're talking multiple Catan. Generally, if you're playing against Catan, try and ignore them for the majority of the time. I mean, it depends, right? So if your opponent throws a Catan in your face, throw your whole army into it, kill it, right? Like, I mean, within reason. I don't literally throw every model in your army into combat with it. I'll be surprised if you could fit that around. But Angron takes 8-ish wounds off a Catan. 8 bound will take some more. Once it's below half as well, your extra units, usually 2 or 3 units. Berserker squad with mass executions, 10-man squad +1 to wound, can take um, you know 9-10 wounds off it on average. So you just need a couple of units and they'll do the business. So but that's a lot of commitment. So to kill one. So if they give you one, if they throw one in your face thinking, it's invulnerable, you can just chuck into it and do it. I mean, Exalted 8 bound are the worst thing to go into them, because they are only damage 2. But generally, you just want to send them in to try and pick up the Doomsday Arcs and all the other stuff, and just like try and tag a load of things and hold them up. But yeah, generally, Katana are the problem with that matchup. And if you can avoid them and just kill all of their scoring units, great. That means the Katana has to sit on an objective somewhere scoring. And if you can uh, and if they give you a Catan on an objective in your face, and it's like, well, this is just insulting, I'm going to remove this off the board, then do it. But you need more than you think. As a World Eater player, it's rare that I throw Angron into something and he doesn't just wipe the floor of it. He shouldn't wipe the floor of a Catan. Like, it is like, even with all the buffs under the sun, he still doesn't kill a Catan on average, right? They'd have to roll bad and you'd have to roll well. Like, it just doesn't. It's not the way it is. The game works. They've got far too many layered defensive buffs, the 4-up invuln and the 5-up Fear of Pain and the half damage. It's just silly. So multiple units are required. And if you really want to secure it, 3 units will do it. Angron, ain't bound, and like another unit of ain't bound, or some jackals with lethals, or something, something to tip that mass over the edge. Especially if you have ain't bound there, once that first unit's hit, like Angron, probably below half, which means the rest of the stuff's getting full rerolls to win. So that's the important part there. But yeah, the main thing for against Necrons is just pick up their little units, right? If you can get into combat with a single destroyer, do it. If you can get into, just try and multi-charge as much things as possible, because one ain't bound can pick up a destroyer. It's just, you've just got to sort of like spread and hit things, and just try and cover the board with death, and so they can't come near it, and then we're stopping them from scoring. Watch out for secret missions as well. Try and take out their find out who their warlord is at the start. If you can get rid of him, great. If you can get rid of their battle line, even better. And then they have to hold 3 objectives, which we have the capabilities of stopping. It's particularly hard if we're going second, but they don't. I find most Necron lists aren't putting out quite enough damage to really make it so we're close to tabled at the end of the game. It feels like it's the other way around. That being said, I don't know how the matchup goes into like the double monolith Silent King. I feel like that should still be fine for us. You hide from them, you get Angron into one of them and it dies. I feel like it can't be too bad, but until I play it, I won't know the real ins and outs of that matchup. T-Suns is the last one I'm going to cover, because I think T-Suns. I'm surprised at the 48% for T-Suns. So I think this is arguably one of our worst matchups, if not the worst. I think there's a lot of problems with it, but I think probably where some of this win rate comes from is it's very, very hard to play T-Suns. It's a very complicated army. It's a very difficult thing to get right positionally, and we can really punish mistakes. And if T-Suns lose momentum early on, they really, really struggle. So because it's all about those cult points, the battle points. So while a lot of these other matchups I've talked about, it's like, kill the screening units, kill the scoring units, and that will get you ahead. The T-Suns, it's the opposite. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to kill some screening, some scoring units, stuff like that. But the focus is not that. You're not, if you can get into their characters, their rubrics, their different units, you just need to. Like, if you can kill some of their cabal generators early, it drastically helps you. So instead of them doing like double doom bolt and like a move and then some reroll saves or something like that, they're suddenly only able to do 1 doom bolt. And there's a massive difference in damage output, or they're not able to do a double move, which means that they're not getting the secondaries that they want by doing that, or they're not got the mobility to get into the right positions with their units to get the right sight lines onto you, or something like that, right? So it causing them to not be able to do everything they want, they have to pick and choose, is the way to go. So if you can pick up, get the chance to pick up something early, it's great. And that brings me on to the way that I play against T-Suns. I feel, unless my opponent plays really badly, which hasn't happened yet, the only way to win against T-Suns is reviving Angron. So, with that in mind, that's how I think about the game. So when I'm like planning what I'm doing, I want to throw Angron into something early to get ahead and then trade him out, basically. So play the trading game against Thousand Suns, you will lose, right? They've got a very nasty Overwatch you have to avoid with the Infernal Master, and they have so much killing potential, and they don't lose it as the game goes on unless you kill like their key units, and they're going to have enough like chaff to stop you from doing that. So the key is, I mean, you get Angron into like a Muta Vortex Beast I did in my last event, or the previous game that I beat a top Thousand Suns player with. I got Angron into a unit of rubrics with a character, and then he picks up whatever he goes into. It's great. And then he gets obliterated by Magnus and some other Doom bolts or whatever, right? And that's fine. But if you've done that on like turn 1 or 2, then you have a good chance of him coming back and being effective in the late game. Also, while doing that, you don't do that alone. There's no point in sending him out to do that, and then that's the only thing you expose. And so he's just got his whole army just pointed at Angron and nothing else anyway. So it's just like that's a waste. You want to send out other stuff at the same time. So you go out, you clear their screens, you maybe try and get some charges through some gaps or around. You go out and score, you get on all the objectives. You set yourself up for an amazing next turn, assuming only Angron dies. And that won't be the case. They'll kill something else. Well, they have the ability to kill multiple things, not just Angron, but they have to worry about where their assets are. And if you just flood the board with all of your problems, then they won't necessarily be able to just deal with whatever they want to. And then if you're clearing all of their screens in that situation and clearing and maybe catching the odd rubric squad somewhere or something, you're watching out for their extra tricks like the crystal to go back to your backfield, or the the Overwatch from the Infernal Master and things like that. If you can avoid those problems, so you screened out your home a bit and everything like that. You can set yourself up for a really great turn afterwards. If they focus down Angron, you then run into half of their army or something with whatever you have left. You hope it's as much as possible. Don't give them everything for free. If there's a unit that probably won't be able to see Angron, probably won't be able to see anything else unless you just throw a unit in front of it, then don't give it a unit to shoot. But play sensible. What I mean is that's the go turn. You send Angron out to do something, and you're expecting him to die, and then you're getting the rest of your army ready to at least either kill stuff that turn if you can, or be ready to kill lots the turn after. And then they have issues with their resources. They have to kill Angron because it's now in their face, and if Angron grabs Magnus, I mean, so that's the other thing. If you kill Magnus, you win that game, right? Yeah, I've never beaten Thousand Suns without killing Magnus. I've never lost to them when I have killed Magnus. So it is all on killing Magnus. Now, that doesn't mean just throw your whole army into Magnus if you get given the opportunity, although that sounds pretty appetizing. The issue there is if he has -1 damage. I mean, if he's chosen the movement buff and not -1 damage, then yeah, throw everything into him. Get your exalted ain't bad in there. They'll churn through his wounds. But if he doesn't, if he has the -1 damage, it's very, very hard for you to kill him. But do remember when he runs in, if he charges into 8 bound, especially exalted 8 bound, that with that -1 damage we can be quite tanky as well. So it's not as easy for him to kill them as it might look. So yeah, the idea is, you want to focus down rubrics and characters, revive Angron, rapid ingress him into a spot that means that he's, will be able to advance and charge to where Magnus is, but he can't just watch out for the double move. That's like one of the hardest moves to do, where you rapid ingress Angron down, and can't find, you've got to try and find that spot where he can't double move to get Magnus into a good spot to then doom bolt you and then shoots you in the face with full rerolls, and probably even they might even do some indirect shenanigans or something like that. But basically, nothing hurts more than when you go, all right, I'm going to rapid ingress Angron, and then Angron dies. You're like, oh. So in my last game, I rapid ingress Angron into a safe spot where he couldn't double move to get into a good spot, but I had advance and charge, so I had 20 inches of movement to get to. I was going to use the 1 CP to auto advance 6 to get to where Magnus was, and I would get that charge reasonably easily. So he then used the double move on Magnus to run him away, which then Angron comes forward, kills rubrics and stuff, and yeah. So I mean, even then, like I haven't killed Magnus yet, and but thankfully my Angron lived that next turn, so I then picked up Magnus after that. But yeah, it's just not the way. You got to be very careful with that game. Like uh, you stand in the wrong, you move out in the wrong order into the wrong place. Oh, there's an Infernal Master Overwatch, and that's a whole squad of yours basically dead. You know, you've really got to be careful. And so a T-Suns player playing it correctly, playing it perfectly, it's basically almost impossible to beat. But T-Suns is such a complicated and difficult army. It's very easy for some positioning errors to happen, or some of to use the Cabal points incorrectly, and suddenly we can, you know, overwhelm them, reduce that Cabal point significantly lower, massively reduces their damage output, and just steamroll the game. So watch out for those sort of positional errors and try to capitalize on them. But be very, very careful of the Overwatch. They've got so many flamers, and Infernal Master with the enhancement is just silly good, especially if he rolls high. If he rolls like an 11, it's just oh dear, there goes my squad. But yeah. And I think that is the end of the. I mean, you know, Eldar and Custodians are our other ones which are less than 50%, but I can't go through every matchup. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've gotten this far, you know, please give a like and subscribe. You know, give me suggestions of what you want to see in the comments, what you liked about this, what you didn't. I do check and read all the comments and reply to most of them quite often. Sometimes on my own personal account, which is BCG Cipher. So just a quick shout out to Glasshammer Gaming and Terrain Forge, our sponsors. Glasshammer, we will give you a 5% off using code Black Crow at checkout. Gives you 5% on top of whatever deals are already there on everything on their website, which includes event tickets. Their events are great. You should go check them out. And Terrain Forge, it's BCG5 at checkout. And once again, 5% off some fantastic terrain, really robust, really like feels great on the table, and customizable as well. You know, you can get your own logos on it, your own sets. You know, so do check out both of those. And also, if you're interested in our other tactics videos, we've got Custodies videos coming out weekly, and we've got a bunch of Dark Angels videos. We do battle reports at the weekend and podcasts, which I am on on Mondays. So please come and check us out on Mondays. It's usually 9 p.m. or maybe even 8 p.m. sometimes. But if you subscribe, you'll see when we're going to go live. So please like and subscribe and check out some of our other videos. If you want more World Eater content, and you haven't seen the rest of this series, check out the playlist that this is a part of. There's lots of great World Eater content there. Cheers, guys, and goodbye.